But yeah, I think we just start off with like the group of people that you grew up around and grew up hunting with. Like, just go ahead and just restate what you just said if possible.
Right. No problem. So I was raised around a group of fox hunters that were Ronnie Graves, Bill Curtis, Ronald Huckleby, Alvin Withy, and like those were all fox hunters. The first bear hunter that were around, which still around here, he doesn't hunt anymore, but his name is Craig Morgan. His guide license number was 002. He was the second person to ever have a guide license in the state of California.
That's crazy.
So that was back, there was a lot of guiding done those years without a guide license because that program hadn't been put together yet.
Right.
And my guide license I got my first guide license in 93, graduated high school, and started guiding right away. And mine was 2709. So there was a couple thousand guides in the state at that time.
Right.
And started my own outfit right away.
Just guiding bears, or were you guiding kind of everything?
Just guiding bears. Started that with the hogs. As my career in the guiding progressed, I went all over the western United States guiding deer, elk. It's just stuff that I wanted to do, and I kind of had to learn it as I went and work out deals with other outfitters so that I could bring a set of guys and start guiding with them and learning the trade, because we weren't raised in the deer and elk guide system. We were mostly houndsmen, so we didn't know anything about that. But I always knew that I wanted to do all that, so it kind of just progressed to that.
Yeah, I've got a buddy here local that right out of high school, he went out and guided in Alaska, some fishing and stuff up there. And I thought back, you know what? If I could do it all over again, like that is the coolest time to go do it. Like when you're getting into the real world, go take your time and go do it while you can.
You're young and it doesn't cost a lot to get around, and
you're happy with about anything that, a flat place to sleep and something to eat.
Yeah. I still am pretty happy with sleeping in that camper, but
you got one of those cool campers though. You got that new dog box camper, right?
It's pretty nice. You can go anywhere and pull off the road anywhere and have your dogs right underneath you and not worry about them, not in a hotel room. We stay on the road a lot anyways because traveling back and forth to different states hunting, and you always worry about getting off the road and going into a hotel room and your dogs are sitting out in a dog box. And especially these days with people screwing with them, they just like to have them.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So
Michael's was the first one I think I saw.
I think Michael's was, if it wasn't, I think it was one of my first ones that I ever bought before, because a guy named Leroy Lee, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's Southern California guy. He was actually the first guy that ever created this, and Hispanic guy down in Southern California started building them. He built the first one, and that's kind of where, in fact, I don't know of anybody else that has built any hound hunter camper that is that style. It's all came from the same place.
That's what I didn't know if it was like just a California thing. Or...
No, it just started that way, and then it come to, what, Ronnie bought one, my dad bought one, and it just, blossomed from there. Everybody wanted one then.
Right. I still want one, honestly. Like, to describe it, I mean, the best way, it's like, it almost looks like a regular mid-'80s to 90s truck camper shell.
Sure.
But the wheel well area, there's doors, and the dogs go under there.
Yep.
So you've got like different configurations. Michael, yours had storage inside too, right? You had like 2 bunks.
Yeah, I had 2 bunks, and then underneath both beds was dog box. And so mine, each dog box was like an L shape. So the dogs go in, and in the back it opened up a little wider. You can haul a few more dogs that way. It had a little hallway you can go in, take your boots off, cabinets up on this front. Eddie's is pretty much built the same way.
Yeah, it's like a big giant U with a divider at like the closest end to the cab.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what blows my mind is I always thought they would get super hot.
I have a fan in mind, but actually they don't get very hot because the sun beats on the camper and all the heat goes in the camper part and not the dog box part.
Yeah.
So it actually stays way cooler than a dog box.
They're pretty slick.
Yeah, they are. I would never have a truck without one.
Very handy in the wintertime. You know how it is. You're out there in the middle of winter, you're in a storm or whatever. You just crawl in there and go to bed. And you get up and you don't
Yeah.
have to put a cot up. You don't have to put a tent up. You don't have to put a tarp up. You don't have to do any of that stuff. And don't get me wrong, in the summertime, I like to have just the dog box. Not that we use the rig and rack much anymore. Most of our dogs strike right out of the sides.
Right.
We hardly ever put a dog up anymore. But that camper is definitely key because it's a home away from home anywhere you go.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
It's
I
good.
just never seen one. And trying to find somebody to make them, unless I got the info from you guys, you couldn't like Google that and find it hardly.
No, yeah.
This guy down south has definitely got that market pretty connected, and you can call him, tell him what size truck you are, and a few little details, and he knows exactly how to build them.
Man, we need to get his information, and I'll just put it in the show notes.
Absolutely, I'll send it to you, and then you have it. And his name's Martin, and he loves all the hound hunters because he's built a lot of them now.
Yeah, just so people can see them, because it's pretty cool. They're really unique, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to send you a picture of one, and that way you can post it too.
Yeah, they're pretty slick. So is that what you were living out of on your big lion hunt?
Not on that particular one. So we have a place out there that we could stay, and it's really hard on those type of line. When you're hunting in Utah, especially the area we're hunting in, the Book Cliffs is an hour and 30 minutes from town. It's hard to keep, there's nothing out there. It's hard to keep a client out there that far without anything, any comforts. And most of the time you're hunting in weather that's 8, 10 below. So trying to keep them comfortable, they can usually only handle about a day of that. And then they need to go home and get in a hotel room, get some hot food and that sort of thing. So we haul back and forth on that particular trip when we're lion hunting out there.
So let me get this straight. You grew up around a bunch of fox hunters.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went on to guiding bears.
Always wanted to be a bear hunter. When you're a kid, you can go see a little fox in a tree, or you can go, run bears. So when you're young, in high school and everything, well, that's all we did was wanted to go around and run bears. That was more attractive to us. And later on, we'll get to talking about him a little bit, but I got hooked up with some guys, and Alvin actually went to work for me. Alvin Withy, really good bear hunter, and taught me probably more about bear hunting than anybody else. And that was just addicting to me, to guide bear hunters. And when you're in 93 making that kind of money every day was, can you go to work somewhere and make $100 a day, or go guide a bear hunter?
Right.
It's way more attractive to go buy a bear hunter and be in the woods where you love to be, rather than working somewhere. So, that's kind of how we got into it.
What is it about the bear hunting that just got you fired up?
The adrenaline. I'm adrenaline junkie anyways. I like adrenaline, and don't get me wrong, every piece of big game, and it may take more of a quality dog to tree a fox, but the adrenaline behind the bears has always attracted me.
Yeah, it's different.
It is, and it's different strokes for different folks. But I always enjoyed that, and it may take a better track dog, quality hound to tree a fox consistently, but it takes a tough-minded dog to be what I consider a bear dog, not
a real
just
bear dog.
A real bear dog, one that stands flat-footed and is going to stay there until you get there. So it's always attracted me, that style of dog.
So are you running any of the same lines of dogs carried on through your family, or is this new stuff that you're hunting?
Cougar can contest to some of this, because the best crosses that came upon me had to be in early 2000s. And I bought a female from Sunny. She had a broke leg. Her name was Nugget. She became a pretty famous dog because of all the dogs she threw.
Oh, yeah.
And Sonny had a little dog. I think, what was her name? Spinner. That was a sister to
Yeah.
her. And then George Baker had a dog named Little Bit. And to this day, I would consider Little Bit to be maybe the best dog that ever walked the face of the earth. I don't know that I've ever
Bear dog.
Bear dog. Now, I'm not talking about a varmint dog, but she was one that she could have her guts hanging out of her, and she would be standing flat-footed, barking at anything until she couldn't walk. You know, she was unreal. And that was Nugget's. That was Nugget's sister, and I got her from Sonny because I wanted to breed one of them, and he sold me one. She had a broke leg. Brought her home, and I had another dog named Gun that came from Timber, which is Cougar's buddy.
Timber.
I can't brag about the cross that I had on it because it was really just a lucky cross. But everything that come out of there were unreal. Those were they were some really good dogs. Every litter she threw they were game catching dogs, and they were not just bear dogs. They were varmint dogs and everything. So.
Yeah, a lot of the varmint dogs are still off of that stuff.
Yeah, and my dogs have to do everything. I don't hunt stuff that are some that are bear dogs and some that are varmint dogs. They got to catch it all. And I don't think I have to give up much on both sides. I go through a lot of dogs maybe, but not have to give up on the quality, you know?
Right.
So
what would you say is the biggest attribute? Just brains and being able to discern what their task is at the moment? Because, I mean, they all run bears different than a fox or a cat.
Well, I probably let Cougar talk a little bit about this, but we talk about it all the time. The type of dog that we got, we call it a running dog. It's got its trig, it's July, it's a little bit of everything mixed up into it. I don't know what all of it. Santa Maria Running Walker, all that stuff is kind of mixed into there. But the line that Nugget come from was a trig that Sonny had brought out there, and they were good track dogs. They were tough. Which people don't give running dogs enough credit. They could trail just as good as a trailing dog could. The difference is when the track got up, they were going to run it down instead of, which a lot of trail dogs, I feel like, don't push a track after it gets up hard enough. You know,
there's no second gear,
and that's what makes, I feel like, that type of dog split apart from other hounds. And they're just crossed up great dogs. They got a little bit of this and a little bit of that in them, but they're when they do get the track up, they aim to run it down. And
was that like the Bouger trig stuff?
What was that?
That's where Nugget started from. The Bouger
that's what
trig,
I thought.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know the whole history on them, probably, huh, Coog?
Yeah, I know most of it.
So, and now, just to clarify with everybody, these are dogs that have been used on multiple game species. Absolutely. You know, different handlers across the board in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
So, well, I mean, I would say the West Coast, even down Southern California. But they all seem to come from just a couple of places. You know, you can track a lot of these dogs back. So, where would you say, like, from Gun and Nugget, that cross, was there a whole lot of going out of that, or were you guys just keeping everything tight to try to just consistently produce all around dogs?
When you look at that, everybody knows Cotton, and there was two lines of dogs that I think really makes what we have now, or what actually Cougar has, and I've fed off of it and got some of it back over time. But there was these white dogs, white-faced dogs. Little female I had was named Dottie back in the day. All Eli, all those dogs that Mike had, he'll tell you about. I'm going to let him explain that because he knows more about it. But those are the kind of the merging of the two styles of dogs. And yeah, that's it. They come from those two different places. And that's what we've created to what we like to run right now. Yeah. Tell us about those.
So, yeah, it's actually the same line on both sides because Gun was out of the same stuff of these white dogs from Charlie Kuntz and Ralph Cowden and all those guys. So Gun is originally started from actually a red bone. That's where the red color comes from. A dog named Parker's Reverend Red. This is years and years ago. Jeff Tripp and went out there in Missouri and got some pups from, out of that Reverend Red dog. And then he bred them to a Walker dog and named Buford, and they ended up with a female called the Red Gyp. She was a really nice bear dog that Ralph had. So Ralph bred the Red Gyp to this dog that he had named Rock, and then they got a dog out of that named Chief, which is Gun's dad. So the Rock dog is also Cotton's great grandpa. So they
so he
bred,
doubled both
yeah.
sides.
So it's the same line, just a complete circle. I mean, I could tell you all of it back since I was a kid, but
And real distinctive traits and appearance too.
Oh yeah,
like you
for
can
sure.
definitely see it.
Yeah. The appearance, there are a lot of white, a lot of them have a half white face, frosted ear. There's been, I don't know how many of them come out look like that. And one of the really good traits is they're outstanding strike dogs. I mean, these dogs will go out there and find a track to run on the rig or the road, out of the dog box. It doesn't matter. Some of the best rig dogs I've ever seen were out of this line of dogs. And that is really consistent in this string of dogs. They are just striking machines.
And tough. That's a trait that most don't have. When you're outfitting or guiding, I don't hunt 15, 20 dogs. I hunt 8 or 10, at tops. So them dogs got to go day after day. And that's what I think, and Michael contests to that, sets it apart from a regular hound and these type of dogs is 2 or 3 days in, a regular dog is starting to wear out, and these running dogs are just catching their stride.
They got a different gas tank.
They do.
For sure. It is. I mean, you guys, well, Cougar knows he'll never let me live down owning a bunch of blue ticks. But when I made the switch over, when we lost the bear hunting and I wanted something different and made the switch over to that style of dog, it was different, especially when they're in shape. It is like whole different gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never hunt enough to really see the potential, but it's like when you see guys out there hunting 4, 5, 6 days a week and they're just still cranking every single night. That's something. That's something.
It's nice too when it's different when you're hunting for pleasure, but when you're hunting for a client
for dollars.
You've got to perform, and they've got to be able to stand up to that. And you got to have faith in them that, barring any major injury, that they can go the next day,
Right.
And that's what attracted me to them. And not just that, but their desire to run down game. That's really all it in a nutshell. We can describe it a million different ways, but at the end of the day, I want a dog to absolutely desire to run down what he's after, and doesn't quit until I'll tell you a story down the road about the little Dottie female that Cougar can tell you how it lines up with all of the dogs that he's bred in the past. But she's the toughest female I ever had. She could run through 2 or 3 packs of dogs on one race if they couldn't run it down. She was that kind of gears. And they just don't make them like that,
Well, and I think a lot of people that are fairly new in this or haven't seen or they hunt a different style, it's kind of hard to explain that too. Like there's a difference in trailing, like trail hounds are going to trail, but the desire to realize like, okay, we just switched from trailing to I'm chasing an animal. We're not running tracks. We're running animal at this point.
They got to learn to pick their head up.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to watch, for somebody who's never seen it.
Right.
So how far, I mean, since you can track it that far back, about what era do you think that this line kind of started?
Well, he would have a better idea.
Yeah, supposedly this started, Ralph Cowden's got a little white speckled up female that was supposed to have been Finley River bred. This guy had a litter, and this one come out looking, like a typical walker. So he gave it to Ralph because he didn't want to sell it because of, the way it looked. Well, Ralph started hunting it, turned out to be pretty good. And then he bred it to, something, and ended up, here we are. This is probably 50 years ago. They're still looking like that, white speckled up.
Yeah.
And he's done
Calico
a lot of
ears.
line breeding, and a lot of the same kind of traits and same dogs. He bred this good dog to good dog for years, and he had a heck of a pack of dogs. Um, like I said, when I was about 10 years old, that's when I got this bloodline. Charlie Kuntz, he hunted with Ralph a lot. He had the same line of dogs. Charlie gave me two puppies, which one was Dixie and one was Charlie. And they trace back to everything I still got today.
Yeah.
It's a long line of dogs, but mainly bear dogs. I started breeding the running dogs into those, back like 2012 when we lost our bear hunt in California. That's when I really started focusing on fox hunting more, and I started getting running dog and breeding it into the same line of tree dogs that I've been hunting around my whole life. And I think it made a big difference.
Sure.
They were all good dogs, don't get me wrong, and they're tough and they catch a lot of game, but they just didn't have those extra gears, that most of them didn't. There was a few that did, like the one that Eddie was talking about, Dottie, and there's a couple that did, but a lot of them were just average speed dogs. They weren't no super fast dogs.
And she
But
wasn't a super fast dog either. I mean, she wasn't a runaway like you would have, but she had bottom that just never quit.
Yeah.
So what made her? Because that's the one, Dottie, you said.
Yeah.
That was probably the best bear dog.
I don't know if it was she ranked there. There is no. I mean, I've had a lot of. Me and Cougar were talking of if we were going to say what is our best dog. If I didn't have any other dog to take to the woods and I was going by myself with just her, she probably had the most bottom and caught the most game when the chips were down by herself than any other dog I ever owned.
Just solid.
She was one of those dogs. It was really hard to believe with nobody that never got to hunt with her, but you could literally be driving 60 miles an hour over the Western Divide, and she would come uncorked in that box, and it'd take you, 500 yards to get stopped, and you could turn her out right there, and she would hit that blacktop 100 miles an hour until she got to the track, and it was, you could almost sharpen your knife. That's how good she was. That goes back to what Cougar talks about with strike dogs. I've said it, and I'm filling my pins with dogs that are out of cotton because I've hunted with that dog enough to know that if you got him out there, he's going to strike 80% of the tracks. That's just the bottom line, and it's hard you can't catch nothing you can't strike. It's just bottom line, So if you ain't got a strike dog, you ain't gonna catch anything. You got to have dogs that'll start a track, and he's phenomenal. And that's the way that bitch was.
Yeah. So, and you're taking, I mean, all these same dogs, and you're still running lions. You're running fox. I mean, you're still hunting fox, right? I've been seeing some Facebook.
We've probably caught. I think he's caught 60 or 70 this year. I probably caught 45, 50.
Which is a haul.
And it's not been a great winter for us. Not a lot of rain here. We've only had a couple of big storms the whole year, but yeah, they catch everything. I don't.
Yeah, these
I hunt
dogs
the same
are pretty.
dogs.
Yeah, pretty versatile. We went over there to Utah lion hunting. We found 3 lion tracks, put on all 3 of them, treat all 3 of them with dogs that's bred to be fox dogs out here in California. Right. Eddie's dogs have been back there a few times. Mine never have. And they
I was gonna tell you, talking to Gabe, which is my partner in Utah and the guiding out there. He's a resident there, and a younger houndsman. And that was we were talking. I says, what would you say in this, if you were in this podcast, that would be your biggest attribute for your hounds nowadays? And he says he never has seen or heard of quote unquote running dogs that trailed as good as any West dogs that are, English, blue tick, whatever you want to call it, with those type of noses, bred to trail, quote unquote, run and trail like these do, and they run down the game like they do,
Right.
So it's blown his mind, and that's all he's ever had is those before this. His thought was he has never seen a type of dog that can go to different climates, different ranges, and perform the same way as these type of dogs do. I can hunt down here with them. I can go to the Book Cliffs in Utah with them. I can go to Stair Creek and off the Rogue River in Oregon, and they all perform well.
Yeah.
So, and we're not the only ones that own them, but the ones we got, I think I'm pretty proud of them.
Yeah.
Even field trials. We take dogs to field trials. We win, bring home buckles, trophies, set
Right.
the Utah state record.
No, that's pretty cool.
And we're the farthest thing from a field trial.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're fun to go hang out at.
Yeah.
Well, the gunner dog that Charlie Johnston owns, he's won tons of buckles in California, all over the place. He's a field trial dog. I mean, he's good as they get. Well, he's out of the same line of dogs. Charlie bought him from me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he goes back to gun. He's actually directly out of gun. And he's artificially inseminated breeding. And then his mother is out of Dottie that Eddie used to own.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's all the same stuff. And then that Clyde dog that Isaiah has is a full litter mate to Gunner. It's out of the same stuff too. So those are the two top field trial dogs in California, and they're all out of the same
hunting
line.
stock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. So this last season, you spent quite a bit of time lion hunting, but you had one pretty memorable hunt from this season.
So as anybody's done a lot of lion hunts, you may spend a week catching a lion in decent conditions. We hardly ever went there where I didn't catch, in a 5-day hunt, we didn't catch at least 2, and the time that Michael went with us, the first 2 days, it was snowing so hard and the wind was blowing so hard, we had 50-mile-an-hour gusts. I mean, you couldn't see across the road. If a lion did make a track, it'd be blowed in 10 minutes.
Right.
So we didn't even get to hunt those first 2 days, and still managed to catch that many in the remainder of the hunt. And 2 of them we caught the same day. One of them, what happened was they just came out with a law that, and I think it's a fairly good law, that any collared cat you can't take. And the first cat we treed was a collared female, so we had to let her go and go cut another track. And we got lucky and cut one late. I think 1 o'clock or so, and took us a few hours to trail him up and get him jumped and treat him. And then we had a mess on that. I don't know remember when we were talking about. We caught one on a cliff too, so you'd have to tell me which one you're talking about, and I'll tell you the story.
Well, let's start with the one on the cliff. We'll just hear both.
Okay. That was the first time I think I was out there this winter. We had a little skiff of snow, and there was an old snow there, and I cut a track at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and it had snow in it. And I couldn't tell because had stepped into old snow. I couldn't tell exactly how old it was because it had snow in it. So I blew it out. I blew the track out with just blew the light snow out of there.
Like,
and I said,
canned air?
Yeah.
No, is that what you pack?
I just blow it out with my mouth, just blow air into it. And if that light snow will just fly right out of the track,
That blew my mind the first time I saw it. Guys carrying around canned air, spraying tracks. I'm like, what the heck? Are we dusting keyboards? Or
I just do it with my mouth. And it looked decent enough where I thought they could. So I had to wait till daylight, and I put a couple of dogs on it. And they trailed for, I don't know, about an hour and a half. And I cut them crossing the road. And when I cut them crossing the road, there wasn't no snow in that track. And I knew that we were in business then. And in another 30 minutes, they were rolling pretty good. And make a long story short, they caught it on a rock and on a ledge. And I was following them. And when I did, I was having another guy come around and get me. And I didn't grab my pack. I was just hurrying them, because I wanted to get them caught before I got off into a big old canyon. Forgot my leashes.
I feel like that's key. I feel like that's a key part of this story.
Forgot my leashes and everything, my little pack that I had. So I had my radio, though, and when I got to them, I didn't have a leash on them, and them dogs were just trying to crawl up there with him. And I actually had a good female get bit right in the head on that cat. But the guy got there, and as soon as those guys creeped around the rock, of course. It seen all them people and blew off the rock, and we
Out
had
of
to
there.
we retreat it. But he took it. It was a really good tom. I think it weighed 150, 160 pounds. Uh, and
That is big cat.
Yeah, it was a really good cat for there. And then the other one was me and Michael and Gabe had one of those ones. I think it was in the one we cut the second cat we cut that same day. How long did it take them, Mike, to trail that cat up?
It took them quite a while. They went, over some pretty rough stuff,
That country is to Jason to describe it. Them cats can go up them cliffs, and a lot of dogs will want to pull up right there and they'll screw around or they'll try to tree or whatever. Well, these dogs that's been in a little bit, especially one of these dogs I got, he'll just leave until he can find a way up it or down it and then come all the way back to the track. So he may leave the track 200 or 300 yards
to get around.
Well,
that's outbound.
That's what them dogs, all of these dogs were doing. And like Cotton and Olive, some of them dogs of Mike's, they never been there at all. They don't know nothing about this country, and they did well in that. Anyway, we trailed that for, 2 or 3 hours before they got it jumped, and they treed this thing right on a big old cliff. And Mike and Gabe went on to the tree, and I was bringing the guy around, and they were there for a little bit. And about the time I get over the top of them, it's 150 yards below me, and I could see the cat in the top of the tree, and I was trying to get the guy off this. I don't know, it probably took from where I was at to where the tree was. I bet it took Michael 15 minutes to get there, and it was only 100 yards. It was just bad.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. Scary, scary country. Well, as soon as we got there, it come out, and it flew off all the way into the bottom of this canyon and went out the other side and treed. And it was too dangerous to take the client. I wouldn't do it. He was begging me to go off there because he was just shot. We'd walked him to death to get there. And I says, man, it'd be irresponsible for me to take you off there because we can drive around the bottom and get fairly close and not hurt it. So Mike came back up to me, and Gabe worked his way, and it took him. I mean, the dogs were only treed 500 yards, and it took him an hour and a half to get to them, to weed through to get to the dogs. And it took us 2.5 hours to get back to the bike and all the way around to come into where they were, and we got it killed right before dark.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was a good hunt. Dogs did good.
You have to wait till daylight to run down there, or can you run them at night?
Nope. You can cut all night. Cut tracks, but you got to wait till daylight to turn loose, and you got to be done before dark. So
with guiding, are you having to change ground pretty consistent, or do you have a good enough population there that you can kind of hunt familiar places?
Well, the places, I don't know that country as good as Gabe knows it because, I live here. I'm learning it really well. I know the Book Cliff's pretty good now, but the Book Cliffs is huge. Well, we stayed in that country, and in 2 days we treed 3 cats. So it's not like they're not a lot,
right?
But we run into 1,500s out there that hadn't caught a cat in a week. So a lot of it is learning how to hunt them cats. There's learning how they travel in that country. You can drive every road there is, but if you don't know how they're crossing and what they're using, you'll never cut one.
You got to drive the right road.
That, or, you may go all the way to the end of a ridge system and turn around on a road. And if you would have walked off the end of that, where that cat would have come around the front of that, he could have been just 75 yards off that hill, and he would cut right around there. In fact, one of those times.
Exactly what happened, yeah.
Yeah. We were going out a road, and we were almost to the end of it. We were 100 yards from the end of it. And I told Mike, I looked over and I says, if we're going to cut a track, it's going to be right here. And we went 50 more yards, and there he was.
Yeah.
Just knowing where they are, knowing how they use that country is the ticket.
Yeah, I feel like the successful lion hunters, everyone I talk to, it's all about the pregame. Yep. It's doing the homework in the locker room and knowing and getting to know the country.
And the every country is different. We hunt the north and south slope. That country up around the Flaming Gorge, those cats operate totally different than they do out in the Book Cliffs. And they're only 2.5 hours apart,
Like as far as their movement, like
Yep.
within their cycle, or
how they travel, what they use, they just operate different. But you're hunting cliffy country, cedar trees type country rather than timber. So
okay,
they just operate a little different. It probably has a lot to do with the way they feed, the way they hunt, the way the elk and the deer move. I think that's what changes the two animals or the two
sure,
areas. So
that makes sense. I mean,
yeah,
whatever the prey's doing, the predators will do too.
sure. And a cat's smart. I think once you're on a good cat track, they're the easiest thing there is to catch. But finding one is the ticket, and finding them right. So
How often do you come across a track that's just too small to turn out on? I mean, is that hard to get a client to pass up a track because you don't want to burn a dog out on or an opportunity on a juvenile?
Well, we try to explain and prepare our clients before we even get there. So we have an expectation of what they're wanting, and we as an outfit, I feel like, got to hold ourselves to a standard to what we want to allow our client to take. We got to think about a lot of things. We want to think about the population of the lions. You don't want to be killing these young lions, these juvenile lions, or something that's not even away from the female. You can cut a young track and may not cut the other ones, and then end up at the tree and find out that you got a female and two big yearlings are right there, that they were just walking off a little bit. You got to be cautious about that. I think we try to find a decent cat before we put out on a decent track.
So what is the guide service? You can go ahead and plug it.
It's No Tell 'em Outfitters. And
where can people find you?
You can go on our website, notellemoutfitters.com, and we've got everything listed on there.
You got Facebook?
Yep, it's on Facebook,
Instagram,
the whole 9 yards. Yeah, I hardly run any of that stuff. That's mostly Gabe. I'm the most untechnical guy that you've ever met.
That's what you said, and I was the one that had technical issues tonight.
Getting me on this, the technology that we took to get me on this podcast was about my limit.
Yeah, well, that's why I said it's not bad.
Yeah,
it's easy stuff. Well, because I started talking to you again last week because we got hooked up at the Elk Creek trial again.
Sure.
And that's just what I found myself is when you're sitting around this group and you got all these guys that are in their 80s, like that's the group to sit around,
right?
And then all these, guys like yourself and Michael and, everybody just kind of gravitates towards just that knowledge base there and hearing all these stories about these dogs from the past and the crazy hunts. And
sure. Listening to Sonny, he's the best storyteller that ever walked the face of the earth.
You know it.
And it's not that he's just a great storyteller. Those stories are true. He's as honest as the day is long, but he could sure tell a story, and you want to sit there and listen to him.
Oh, that's what yesterday I got to talk with Jesse, and I talked with Sonny this morning because I've been trying to set it up to get down there for almost 2 years now, and then COVID hit. And I'm not going to be the one to kill Sonny Turner. I didn't want to take any chances. And then, everything else going on in life on my end, and time starts slipping away, and you realize, man, I got to get down there. So we've been really actively pursuing it since Elk Creek. And I think I'm really hoping that next week I can find some time to slip down there and do one with him too.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like back in the day when we were young was some of the best houndsmen that ever walked the face of the earth. They were not just hunters, but they were houndsmen. I don't know if you ever got a chance, Jason, to meet a guy named Bill Curtis.
Mm-mm.
He died, 4 or 5 years ago or something in his mid-90s. And Sonny, he hunted with Sonny, he's hunted with everybody. And he was just as good of a houndsman that there was. He could take any type of dog and make something out of it, and he hunted 6 days a week. The only day he didn't hunt was Sunday because he was at church, and that was religious. He did it all his life.
Why do you think that is? I mean, just what's your opinion on why have I mean, I know there's a lot more hunters per capita now,
Mm-hmm.
by far. I mean, hound hunting has just taken off in a lot of ways. But
Why do you
I mean,
think there
what do
was
you
more hound
think?
hunters or better houndsmen
Like
then?
houndsmen, yeah, like that caliber of houndsman. Then is it just we're over flooded with a lot more hunters, or
Well, I don't know. It's look at like I think a lot of those in those days were raised into it. You know, we didn't know any different. But on Friday night, my dad worked for a living, so we didn't know any different than to go get in that truck on Friday night because that's where we were going until Sunday night.
sure,
Mike's the same way. His dad was a houndsman. He was around. I think there's a lot of young people in here, and I think that's where people like me, not Mike, because Mike's good about that, are very uh, negligent on taking young houndsmen in and working with them, taking them hunting, just showing them a different way. They don't have the set of guides that we all had, I feel like, in those
sure.
days.
Like we're all kind of, I I think to elaborate on that, it's a lot more people in this set group. Like they've been hunting dogs for let's say 3 to 5 years,
Right.
right? And they congregate because they're all going through this at the same time, and then the guys that have been doing it longer can look back on that, and it's like, oh, I see what you're doing. If I were you, I'd really consider this, and try to help them out. But it's hard to find a I think people willing to share that knowledge that is not in that older age bracket.
It's too bad
And
too, and
it
I'm
is.
guilty of it. You know, like I can say of my life, I had a dad that we didn't have a ton of money, so we didn't buy a lot of dog. He never bought a dog. I mean, if he paid $200 or $300
Mhm.
for a dog, he made everything that he had, which that takes a good houndsman to do that. You didn't
Yeah.
just go buy trained dogs, you know. Uh, and then I had when I started guiding, I was the guy that jumped into an outfit right off. I owned my own outfit, but I surrounded myself what I felt like was some of the best bear hunters in the country that worked with me. You know, Alvin Withy, Lewis Thompson, uh, Ronald Huckabee, all those guys that have been around hounds forever, and they taught me how to not just how to catch a piece of game after you find the track, but how to find a bunch of bears, how to find feed, you know, all of those things that make you a good hunter along with that, you know.
Like
So
more of a true woodsman.
exactly.
I feel like that generation.
And I had all of that. I think Mike had it too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to find young hunters. I mean, Mike's 10, 12 years younger than me that catch the amount of game that he catches and
Yeah.
understands what's happening when it's happening with, you know, don't lie to himself about what a dog's doing out there. I
Right.
think
What's
that's
happening between A and B?
exactly, you know, it's that's a trait in itself.
Yeah.
When you go to lying to yourself about what them dogs are doing in the woods, you're not going to do nothing but hurt yourself because you're going to let them get away with too much, you know.
Exactly.
So
I had a conversation with a guy that I haven't talked to in years. We had a bit of a falling out, and got a phone call, and we talked some stuff over, and he said something that just resonated. He says, "Well, I heard you got real honest about some dogs." I said, "Yes, I did." And that's a whole different level when it comes to dealing with dogs. Is once you can really be honest and not justify a lot of that crap in your head. Even if you don't make the decision that you might need to make, at least you're making the wrong one instead of just doing it unknowingly.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
So, Michael, when you went over that way, that you hadn't been over and hunted that country before?
So I went over there in the summertime and hunted bears one time before, but I've never been over there cat hunting. Talking about
Yeah.
Utah, and yeah, it was quite an experience. It was cold. It was in the negatives every day, like negative
Mm.
11, negative 12, and it took me a day or two to kind of get used to that kind of cold weather. And I didn't know how my dogs were going to do in that kind of weather. They've never been in anything like that. So I was
Right.
a little nervous about that, but they did just fine. They put them on those tracks, and they went along with Eddie and Gabe's dogs and made every tree and had no problem out of it at all. I was really impressed how good they did in that kind of conditions, never being on any kind of snow like that. Some of that
Yeah.
snow we were up to our waist almost, and some of it in the drifts, trying to get through it. I don't even know how the dogs got through that stuff.
Swimming.
Yeah, but
it
it
is
was
different on
definitely
them.
it was definitely a different experience. I'm used to fox hunting out here. It's kind of a fast pace. You road dogs there. You just drive around all day looking for a track. I'm chomping at the bit to get these dogs out of the track.
Tracking. That's what they call it in Wisconsin. They call it
Yeah, we
tracking.
did some tracking, but we didn't go that long. First couple of days, like Eddie said, it snowed and it was windy and storming. It wasn't much we can do. I mean, we're still out there, but wasn't much you could do. But after the storm settled, it was on. Then it was a good
Like
hunt.
a lot of times on that, them cats aren't even going to move in that stuff. So,
sure.
if not to say that they don't ever move in a storm, but sometimes when it's blowing 60 miles an hour and you're sitting on top of there and the wind chill is 30 below, it's like you're spinning your wheels a lot of it. But I was going to
risk and reward.
I was going to tell you a testament to what these hounds are. Gabe has hunted there his whole life. He's lived in Vernal, Utah his whole life. And everything he's got now is this style of hound. I asked him today, I says, what do you think? Because I wanted to give him a little bit of input on this podcast of what he thinks is the biggest attribute to these dogs. And he goes, he's always heard that running dogs couldn't trail a track. They were just running a hot track all the time. He's proved that to be different. And that they're the most versatile dogs in any type of country that he's ever seen. They can go anywhere and not make you look bad,
Yeah.
And that is the biggest testament I can think to these type of dogs is what they do. I always hate the term when somebody says, "Oh, you got running dogs, they're never going to trail," and that is not the case.
It's not true.
Not at all.
Yeah, well, Cotton's a perfect example. He's half running walker, and he's the best trail dog I own. Probably one of the best trail dogs I've ever hunted with. And when he hits a track, he don't bark in the same place twice. I mean, Eddie can testify to it too. He can trail a track with the best of them. And his brother Eli was the same way. It's I hear all these people all the time, it's the same like Eddie's saying, these are running dog, it won't trail, it won't tree, it don't do this, it don't do that. Well, maybe if you don't have the right one, but the ones that I want, they do it all,
Well, I know I was talking with Brett Vaughn, and he's doing some pot liquor, so whatever he calls those dogs down there, the pot liquor dogs, and some running dog crosses now too.
Right.
They're looking at doing some of that. Because I do think they got a bad rap. A running dog is just a running dog. But, I mean, some of these, like some of the Boozer stuff and, some of these Julys even, full-blooded will sit there and rack them off at a tree.
Well, it's like that Beetlejuice dog I sold to Sonny. He'd locate and tree just like a coon dog. I mean, he's full paper trig.
Registered trig.
Sonny Turner still owns him today. He bought him from me. And he'd locate and tree as good as of any coon dog,
and it's not even the mix, when you break it down, like you see these dogs that are 5/8 or quarter or whatever, you can't say the higher percentage of tree dog made them tree better either.
No,
it's just specific traits that are coming through.
Well, like that whole line of dogs that Nugget and them, I know Nugget wasn't, of course, Michael's going to know more about exactly how they were bred, but them were the locatingest tree and suckers you ever laid eyes on. And they were the triggiest looking dogs you ever laid eyes on.
Well, they're pretty much half trig is what they were.
That's what they were. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They were, but they were tough and they had all the aspects that we liked. What I like to see, Jason, is there's a time in the track when you're skipping through there that it's time to lift your head up and start running down what they do. In fact, that's what Gabe said the first time we ever went hunting. We put after a track, and they kind of went out of our beeper range. And we worked around there, tried to get back in line with them. It took us 30, 40 minutes. By that time, the running dogs were already almost a half a mile ahead of them. And by the time we treed the lion, the dogs were a mile and a half. Were treed a mile and a half before the other dogs behind by the tracker. That's how far they were behind on a hour and a half track.
just straddling it.
Just when they get to where they can get the track up, they just start skipping on it, and they're pushing to catch it, where them other dogs are kind of the same speed, they
never
just
grab gear.
Exactly.
Persistence.
And that's what's impressed me about Cotton. He, like Mike said, we got a lot of young dogs out of him now, but he never barks even on a fox track or something, he never barks in the same spot twice. And if I ever hear him bark 10 times on a track, I feel like you're going to bet your ass that we're going to run that track.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get it jumped somewhere along the line,
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, to hear, because I think that the track style is what it boils down to. And people, at least I know myself, I didn't understand. Like, it was either you caught it or you didn't, and I think that's how a lot of younger or more inexperienced houndsmen think of things. You're gauging success off of catching or not catching. But
exactly.
You would I'm assuming you guys will agree with this. Correct me if I'm wrong. But just because those dogs treed that lion 1.5 miles out in front, not to say persistence wouldn't have still caught that same cat. It's the style in which they do it.
Not at all.
And
they could have. And I would not be ever condemn a dog for saying that he would have never caught that piece of game. But I'm always been of the perspective that I want mine to be in the front when he catches that game. So that's pretty much how we've been raised around here. There's always competition about it. You want them hard driving, fast running. When the track gets up, you want the dog to be in front. And that's what we breed for. And it's not wrong that other people breed for different things, or not that style of dog, but that's just not the style of dog that I want, is all,
Yeah. I think figuring out what you want as a houndsman is when you find that second gear. It's kind of the same thing. Instead of going through the motions, you're dedicating. And
this is a good example of what we've talked about. There's been a few guys that come around that says, I got to sell this dog because none of my other dogs can run with it.
Yep.
I'm the opposite. I'm going to sell everything else, and I'm going to find something that can run with that one. Because
just take some time off the calendar and a stack of money.
Yeah, I'm going to own the one that wants to run in the front, not the ones that want to run to everything else.
Right.
So
you need that one. You got to stack the dollars up. Is that how it works down there? You just stack it up.
Yeah.
Heck, nowadays you can't make a dog for what you could even buy one. Like ridiculous prices 2-3 years ago. Gas at $5 a gallon. You can't afford to make dogs anymore.
It's tough. It's tough to go hunting anymore. It cost a guy an arm and a leg. The problem is finding a place to hunt the way they let this country burn up.
Yeah, you guys lost a lot of ground down there.
A ton. Yeah.
So, and it sounds like a lot of it burned in a way that you're not going to see it coming back anytime in the near future either.
Some of it won't come in my lifetime, I don't think.
That's the wildest part for me.
Yeah.
Because, we'll get wildfires. And the Biscuit Fire was probably one of the biggest ones up here that people remember.
Right.
And the Douglas Complex a couple years ago. And some of that is just scarred, for a long time. And most of these will recover in, 10, 15 years. You'll get something coming back. But
sure. Well,
you guys lost a slew of ground down there.
Had you ever hunted much in the river up there, the Rogue, and around Stair Creek and all that?
I don't know about that one specifically, but yeah, I live right in Grants Pass, so I do most of my hunting right around here.
I used to go up there a bunch with Tom Matthews, and he lived in Sunny Valley.
Oh, yeah.
And we always hunted that Stair Creek, and that was some of the steepest, roughest country. It had run that undergrowth in there, and them dogs just had to really pull through that. Yeah.
It's different ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Took a different type of dog to run in that country to push, to catch something,
That's one thing I'll say, like living right here where I do, we're pretty blessed because you can be high desert, coast nasty, thick, godforsaken ground. You can be in the big pines. You can be several places. Cougar, you saw a little bit of it.
Yeah.
In an hour driving, it's pretty diverse difference in ground. But, you head over to that coast range and it's that thick underbrush and
Yeah, we went over there when I was at your house. We didn't hunt it, but we went and drove around over the coast and looked at it.
We drove through it.
Yeah, it great big trees and thick brush. It was kind of some neat country. Would like to hunt it.
It's cool country.
Yeah.
It's just it's different getting around in for sure. And it's one of those you'll bluff out and you don't even know it's coming. You're walking on 3 foot of fern and next thing you know, there's nothing below you
Yeah.
kind of deal. A little sketchy.
Yeah.
No doubt.
But yeah, it's I know Cougar, you like to travel quite a bit because I know you like to test those dogs in
Oh yeah.
multiple scenarios and different ground and setting conditions. What would you say that Utah was a challenge in any way, or did you see those dogs just being smart, figure out how to adapt, or did they kind of go in and run like they just always do?
No, it was definitely a challenge. It took a little bit for them dogs to get down them bluffs and stuff, because you can watch them on the GPS and, they'd go down one way and get bluffed out and have to turn back. But it seemed like once one dog figured out how to get down there, they would
Yeah,
all, or most of them would kind of follow that one dog down there, but it definitely is a challenge itself. It's something my dogs weren't never been in, they weren't used to that kind of stuff at all. But,
it's scary.
yeah, it was a little bit scary, even for me getting to that tree, it's all snow and it's cliff. So you don't even know where the edge is at.
Yeah,
So, and I finally made my way down there sliding on my back, and I got down there and all of a sudden all the snow's falling on my head, and I look up and I see the lion just sailing off the cliff, and I'm like, holy cow, now how am I getting back up,
man.
So then I had to figure out how to get back up there to the top. I have a video of me standing above the lion on a cliff, and I'm looking straight down at the lion.
Oh
I was
man,
above it. And then I was like, how am I going to get down there to where it's at now?
it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's definitely a challenge on the hunter and the dogs, those cliffs, but I think once a dog learns how to navigate that stuff, they can do pretty good. I thought my dogs did pretty well for the first time being there, but like I said, they had those other dogs that kind of follow too.
Yeah, that's to me. I think the cliffs would be the scariest part.
Yeah, it
It's
definitely
bad
is.
enough. I mean, you get like leaner trees. Well, shoot, that one we caught when you came up on that trip.
Yeah.
Had that fox went another 5 foot before it treed, we probably would have had a whole pack of dogs just right off the edge.
Yeah. No, that was steep. Big
That
old cliffs
was,
there too.
yeah, it's just that makes me nervous as all heck, man.
But
There
yeah,
is some country out there that'll scare you to death. Looking off of it, you can't be faint of heart in that country for sure.
No. Well,
yeah,
guys, I appreciate you coming on. I mean, let's plug your guide service again, real quick, Eddie.
So it's No Tell 'em Outfitters. We operate out of Utah and California, and yeah, you can find us on the internet or Facebook, Instagram. We run all over it. Actually,
All
Mike
over.
is our. We use Mike as our PR guy. He's the
He's got a title
now.
best video guy there is.
Yeah, I run the No Tell 'em Outfitters Facebook page, the California Sporting Dogs Facebook page, the CHC's Facebook page. I got a bunch of them.
You still do Small Game America too?
I still run it, yeah, but they're not very active anymore. There's not a whole lot going on, but I still am admin on there, yeah.
Well, I don't know when this is going to air, but I will take 1 second and talk about there is hope as far as keeping our hunting across the U.S., considering what California just went through. You guys just had a major win.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Michael, you want to kind of elaborate on that since you're involved with the California Houndsmen for Conservation?
Yeah, so basically what happened was the Humane Society proposed to the California Fish and Game Commission to ban bear hunting in the state of California completely altogether. We already lost running bears with hounds in California back in 2012, but they wanted to completely stop it. So it went through all the committee votes and all that stuff. Well, just the other day they had the final vote, and we won in our favor 4-0 vote. So
yeah,
California,
unanimous vote.
Yeah. So California, that's a good step, in the right direction.
So for everybody out there that thinks there's no hope in the West anymore, let that show you. I mean, really. And a lot of that's just because of the Houndsman clubs down there and the support.
Yeah, if anybody wants to help fight these things, they need to join their local hounds club. In California, the California Hounds of Conservation, it's a statewide club. I'm the vice president for them. Then we also have our local club, which is the California Sporting Dog Association, and I'm a board member for them as well. And then you got Oregon has their clubs. I mean, every state is a club. I think if you're a houndsman, you should be involved in a club.
And there's a bunch, like California has quite a few.
Oh, yeah.
Is the Modesto Club still up?
Yeah,
and you got NorCal.
Yeah, North Central California Hounds. I'm a member of all of them.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Jason, I appreciate you as a hound hunter, you and Buddy, to give houndsmen the platform that we never had before. Things like this and what W does for houndsmen in general. It's important, I feel like. And, we're fighting an uphill battle all the way, but I feel like we're starting to become on the offense rather than defense.
It's a different shift.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate it. We're happy to do it. I mean, really, because it's a big deal, and we all got to be on the same team, and we got to support fellow houndsmen, state to state around the world. I mean, it's a big thing. And I think, the clubs that are putting on the fundraisers and really doing the dirty work to get the California Game Commission to unanimously shut down HSUS, I'm telling you,
it's amazing.
Let that resonate.
Second time they proposed this, was it last year too, and we shut them down. So it's the second time we've stopped them.
And I know for a fact that some of that came from those board members or commission members actually putting boots on the ground behind dogs.
Yes, Lori Jacobs actually took one of the commissioners hunting, and I don't think he's a commissioner anymore, though. But this was back when we got our GPS collars. So she took him, showed him how the dogs handle, and showed him, all this stuff. And he was like, all these accusations you guys are making about these hounds, you're totally wrong. He got up and spoke on our behalf. And that really helped us. Lori does a really good job helping fights for the California Houndsman. She's the president of the California Houndsman Conservation, as you know. But she is a very, very good at what she does.
Well, we'll get some links up for that too, and people can find them on the Join the Fight page. So, but yeah, man, that was great. I appreciate you coming on. I feel like we don't get to catch up a whole lot, but it's always fun to see you guys.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, get some more good stories. We'll do this again for sure.
Yeah, we got plenty of stories.
I need to start giving all you guys homework and find us an old timer, convince them that it's not that scary.
Yeah,
and let's get them on here and hear some stories.
We could probably get Alvin on here.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, was Alvin at Elk Creek this year?
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't.
I didn't think so. I know it was crazy and real. It hit me. Last year at Elk Creek, I know Sonny was standing there holding a picture, and he just kind of looked over at me and he says, "There's only 3 of us left out of those 9," or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it really hits. It's like, man, these guys got stories that at least if we can get them on here, it's here forever. It's not going to get forgotten in a generation. It's something that we can just continue on. And
well, I'll tell you what. One thing about Alvin, I talk to him nearly every day. And we've had our wars over the years, but that man, he can't see, but he's not lost his mind. And I can ask him, just like I asked Mike about this dog and that dog, dogs that I own that I forgot all about. I have to call these guys to ask him. And Alvin's the same way. His mind is sharp as a tack. So if you could put that together, these old timers are the guys that you need on there.
Yeah. No, we've got some new equipment I got to test out. We can do some phone calls and
awesome.
It'd be nice.
I would be willing to get him somewhere like this so that you could do this with him.
Well, we'd love to have you on with him too. I mean, that's, to me, those are the best podcasts, or the ones that I enjoy the most, are when you've got 2 guys that know each other and just let the conversation go where it goes, because I want to hear what you want to talk about.
Sure.
These stories have been told 100 times for a reason. It's because they're good.
Right. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So we'll follow up on that one. We'll have to make it happen.
Awesome.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. Have a good one.
All right, Jason.